Wonderful, brilliant. Well, we have two additional special guests. A very warm welcome to the Lord Mayor and his wife here to the event. And we'd now like to introduce Mark Simmons, who is the CEO of CORE, an international peacebuilding organisation based here in Coventry, and he will say a few words about CORE and today's event. Thank you.
Thanks very much, and thank you to Casey for organising this, and to colleagues in the Cathedral and the University who've been so instrumental in setting this up. And thank you to Coventry for being a place where peace and reconciliation have a focus. I was really moved by what Emmanuel was telling us about his journey just before. I have to confess, if I had had that kind of journey and spent 10 years doing menial work in different countries, moving from place to place, having fled an armed conflict, I don't think I would be able to speak as articulately in Juba Arabic in a local event there as he was able to here. I recognise the enormous value that he's brought to our understanding. I would, however, like to correct, in a sense, one thing he said, because he talked about peace arriving in his country in 2005, and then he talked later about the Civil War, which erupted in 2011. So peace really didn't come to South Sudan in 2005. They had something called the Comprehensive Peace Agreement, which was not really an agreement, and far from comprehensive, and didn't really address peace. Other than that, they got the name exactly right. That's because they didn't really understand what peace is. So there are three things I wanted to talk about quickly: partnerships, peace, and dignity, because that's the theme of the International Day of Peace this year. The peace is the what, the dignity is the why, and the partnerships are the how. So to understand that, we need to understand what peace is. Peace has often been hijacked, as it was in South Sudan and Sudan, as a political term. Or we think perhaps of peacekeeping from the UN. Peace, as in the peace between Sudan and South Sudan, was simply a negotiated agreement between an unrepresentative group of people from one side of the conflict and an unrepresentative group of people from another side of the conflict. It wasn't peace because it didn't look at anything other than how to share wealth and power between people who were fighting. And peacekeeping, I'm also rather sceptical about, just in passing, because if you've got a violent conflict with enough armed groups, non-state actors and so on running around, is it really appropriate to add yet another armed group into the mix, however well-intentioned they are? Peace is a mixture of fairness, love, dignity, forgiveness, kindness, justice, and we've heard about some of these themes today, and we're running behind, and I don't want to speak for long. Peace is something which is much more all-encompassing than simply the end to a violent conflict between two groups, which continues to fester long after the event. We've heard from Emmanuel how the comprehensive peace agreement broke down very quickly, and how there is an ongoing power struggle between different groups of people in his country who have wiped each other out in quite devastating ways, both deliberately and through the knock-on impact of that violence. Peace has got to come when people recognise the dignity of those around them, the individual inherent value that they have. When people recognise the individual identity of their neighbour, however different that neighbour is, they start to recognise that person's dignity. That person becomes an individual. And that's why we were so moved by the pictures of the baby on the Turkish beach, because we recognised that that was one person, and that individual had been denied dignity. a huge number of people, those who are travelling across Europe now, becomes a statistic that when we focus down on one person, we understand that they have dignity, or they should have dignity, and they've been denied that dignity. Their value as a human being has been ignored. So peace is really possible when we recognise that value, when we see people around us as individuals and we treat them as equals. We love them, we forgive them, we cherish them. And that's why partnership is important, because partnership undermines the power struggle. Partner is by definition, if done well, equal. A partner is somebody who has a sense of value and worth, somebody who enhances my dignity and whose dignity I enhance. So partnership does away with that power struggle where you're constantly trying to be more important than the other, to have more wealth, to have more political power, to have more social prestige. And partnership undermines also revenge. It builds forgiveness. Because revenge also, a little bit like power struggles, is that I want you to have a little bit less than me each time. I will only feel avenged if you're slightly worse off than I now feel. So by definition, it's also something where it's a vicious cycle. So partnership enables forgiveness because partnership recognises equality and value. So I wanted to leave you with those three thoughts about what peace is, what dignity is, why dignity is important, and how we can achieve some of that dignity and some of that peace by taking an approach which recognises the value and the equality which we each have. Thank you very much.